This analysis addresses two parallel and historically unprecedented issues concerning President Donald Trump: the pursuit of a massive $230 million administrative claim against the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, and the lasting political and legal impact of his 34 felony convictions. Both issues fundamentally test the rule of law and the integrity of the American justice system, particularly concerning the executive branch's independence. The $230 million claim stems from two separate administrative complaints filed under the Federal Tort Claims Act, FTCA, before his second inauguration, seeking damages for the legal costs and alleged harms associated with the federal investigation into Russian election interference and the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago for classified documents. The administrative nature of the claim allows it to be adjudicated by the very DOJ officials, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward, who previously served as his personal defense lawyers or those of his co-defendants, creating a direct and profound conflict of interest. The 34 felony convictions resulted from the New York State case in which a jury found Trump guilty of falsifying business records in the first degree to conceal an underlying crime related to the 2016 election. While the sentence was an unconditional discharge, the verdict cemented the former president as the first U.S. chief executive to be a convicted felon. This event, despite its political firestorm, is legally distinct from the administrative claims, though both contribute to an environment of legal controversy surrounding the presidency. Reasons and consequences. The $230 million claim, reasons and implications. Reasons, vindication and cost recovery. The primary motivation is likely twofold: to gain public vindication by having the U.S. government, now controlled by his administration, formally acknowledge that the investigations were wrongful, thereby justifying the label witch hunt, and to secure reimbursement for the tens of millions of dollars spent on legal defense. Abuse of process. By keeping the action as an administrative claim under the FTCA and not escalating it to a public lawsuit, the matter can be handled internally and privately by his political appointees, circumventing the public scrutiny and independent judicial review that a federal court case would entail. Leveraging executive power. The claim is a direct exercise of presidential power over the executive branch, demanding taxpayer money from the department he controls. Consequences. Erosion of DOJ independence. The most severe consequence is the potential destruction of the public perception of the Justice Department's integrity. Allowing former defense attorneys to approve a massive payment to their former client, the sitting president, creates a stark appearance of political corruption and the weaponization of the department for personal gain. Constitutional crisis. The payment itself, if approved, would likely violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits the president from receiving any payment from the federal or state governments beyond their fixed salary. This would set a highly dangerous precedent for future presidential profiteering. Misappropriation of taxpayer funds. The total amount is subject to debate, with critics arguing the valuation is unjustifiably high. Any payment would come from taxpayer money, potentially diverting funds intended for legitimate government liabilities. The 34 felony convictions. Reasons and implications. Reasons. The conviction was based on the jury's finding of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump willfully falsified business records, 34 counts, with the intent to conceal a second crime, unlawful means to influence the election. The jury was persuaded by the evidence presented by the prosecution regarding the intent behind the financial transactions. Consequences. Historical precedent. The convictions mark a pivotal moment in U.S. history, establishing that a former president, even one who has reclaimed the office, is not above state criminal law. Political polarization. The verdict has intensified political division, with supporters framing it as further proof of a politically motivated legal system, while opponents view it as a necessary enforcement of the rule of law. Legal instability. While the conviction does not disqualify him from holding office, the ongoing appeal process means the legal status of the president is fundamentally unstable. The ultimate outcome of the appeal will shape political norms for decades. Prediction and solutions. Prediction. it is highly unlikely that the full $230 million claim will be paid out as an administrative settlement. The intense political and congressional scrutiny, led by minority Democrats citing the emoluments clause, will likely force top DOJ officials to recuse themselves, or result in a formal denial of the claims by career legal staff, pushing the issue back to the courts. If Trump were to sue, the legal challenge based on the emoluments clause would be significant. The felony conviction will remain a political factor for the foreseeable future. The appeals process in New York is complex and lengthy, meaning the legal finality of the conviction will not be reached during his current presidential term. Solutions and recommendations. Mandatory independent ethics review. Congress should legislate, or the DOJ should implement a policy requiring all administrative claims against the federal government filed by the sitting president to be reviewed exclusively by an independent, nonpartisan board or a specially appointed courtmaster, entirely bypassing political appointees with conflicts of interest. Legislative clarification on emoluments. Congress must pass legislation clarifying the application of the domestic emoluments clause to administrative claims and settlements, making it explicitly clear that any payment from the U.S. Treasury to the President beyond their salary is unconstitutional, regardless of the process used. Full public disclosure. The administration must be required to immediately and publicly release all internal documentation, exhibits, and legal analyses related to the $230 million claims to ensure transparency and allow for public and congressional oversight.